British Empire was in fact not the first empire to have that name. That honour goes to the Britannic Empire that was created in the 3rd century by Carausius. Well, in 1260 there was the short-lived Gallic Empire, and this covered most of modern-day Britain and France. This, however, fell, but 12 years later Carausius, who was a Roman commander, rose up against the empire and founded his own. In 1260 there was the short-lived Gallic Empire that covered most of modern-day France and Britain, but this quickly fell, and 12 years later Carausius, who was a Roman commander, rose up against the Roman Empire and founded the Britannic Empire, which covered pretty much the same territory. He was quickly defeated, and very little was spoken about this empire again until the medieval times, and Geoffrey of Monmouth made a hell of a lot of stuff up about this empire. He said that Carausius was a native Brit who was fighting for his people. But the more famous modern British Empire still had some pretty strange origins. For instance, I can't pronounce Welsh names. Humphrey Llwyd, a Welsh author and MP, was the first person to use the term British Empire in 1572. You may notice that 1572 is before Great Britain was formed, so he was actually talking about the legendary empire of King Arthur. But another Welshman, John Dee, who was a well-known occultist in the Elizabethan court, also used myths and legends to advocate for an empire. In Elizabeth's time, Spain and Portugal had agreed to divide the world between themselves, so a third empire would be unwelcome. So John Dee used the legendary account of Madoc's discovery of America, which I talked about in another video, but to summarize it here, it claims a Welshman discovered America, and that would give Elizabeth claims to American colonies. And he also used the story of Arthur to claim that Elizabeth had the right to colonize, well, take over Ireland, Scotland, parts of Germany, parts of France, and even Iceland. John Dee also said that an empire would bring a great deal of wealth to England, but so too did Richard Hakluyt in 1584. Now, he was a diplomat in Paris and started receiving information from the New World, specifically from Florida and France's colony there, Fort Caroline. He presented his discourse on the commodities and necessities in the New World to Queen Elizabeth, and the same year she gave Walter Raleigh the permission to go colonize remote, heathen and barbarous lands. The next year, Virginia was colonized, and the British Empire in the Americas at least was born. This isn't to say that the English were never interested in North America beforehand. For instance, John Cabot, he was the first person to land in mainland North America since the Vikings, and he did so under the commission of Henry VII. Cabot's discovery of Newfoundland encouraged Elizabeth to give Humphrey Gilbert the permission to explore and colonize the region in the 1570s. Finally, I should mention John Hawkins. Now, he was a pirate essentially in the 1560s who used to raid Spanish and Portuguese ships, and he used to take slaves off their ships. And on one journey he travelled to Spanish Venezuela and sold these slaves. He then travelled up to French-controlled Florida and sold some provisions. And this profitable journey essentially laid the groundwork of what would become the transatlantic slave trade.